Welcome back, folks. I'm Frizz, and today I'd like to take the time to talk about 3 classes from Pathfinder 1e that I would like to see included in the next playtest. For those not in the know, Paizo has hinted that there is going to be a new playtest at Gen Con, and presumably a new book announcement with it, and every single playtest up until this point has included new classes, and has included new classes that have been converted from Pathfinder 1e. Generally, Paizo likes to bring over their content from that, system because, well, there's already whole classes made, they just have to convert them. So I would like to take some time to talk about the ones that I would like to see from Pathfinder 1e. Specifically, I want to see the Inquisitor, the Shifter, and the Kineticist. Alright, so the Inquisitor. Before we get further into the actual mechanics of what I would like to see from the Inquisitor, I need to talk about the place that Inquisitors actually hold in Pathfinder for me, as I don't exactly find the name Inquisitor to be entirely accurate. To me, Inquisitors are the followers of a deity that are willing to break the rules and tenets to make sure that shit gets done. The ends justify the means, and it's okay to commit some blasphemy, so long as you stop more blasphemy. It's a rule that neither clerics or champions can really fit currently, so I feel like it's understandable for it to be its own entire class. I'm still going to be calling this class the Inquisitor, but that's just because I'm terrible at naming things, and I absolutely feel like you can get a more representative name that doesn't lock the entire class into the same kind of trope of character. Mechanically speaking, though, I think that the Inquisitor should be a skill-based, divine-bounded spellcaster. They would have the same number of spell slots a day as a magus, but with divine spells instead of arcane, as a unique mechanic on top of having access to some divine spellcasting. They could have different reactions that they could use to call down judgment on their enemies, and anyone who gets in the way of their mission, which is anyone that they say is in their way. Whenever a judgment gets called down, the Inquisitor could make a skill check related to that particular judgment, and then depending on the result, they buff themselves until they use a different judgment. So, oh, you attacked my friends, I say that is something that you should really not be doing, and therefore I will be hitting you harder. There could be different types of judgments that are tied to the subclass of the class, which I'm just going to call dogmas, because why not? All Inquisitors would be able to call down one particular judgment, that is most likely someone attacks an ally, but each dogma would have access to different judgments, which are different reactions, that are tied to different skills. Think of this like swashbuckler styles, in each subclass that is tied to a particular skill, and then they can buff themselves using that skill, like getting into panache. You could have all different types of dogmas with different ideas and different ways of executing justice. So you could have one that's based on thievery that messes up enemy movements, or you could have a very stereotypical Inquisitor that uses intimidation. There are all kinds of cool options that you can do with this that I would really like to see. I feel like a divine spellcaster that gets a lot of use out of skills to beat the heck out of things would really be useful, because currently there aren't really any divine or explicitly divine classes that deal a lot with skills that, focus on dealing damage. We have a defender with the champion and a all-around buff caster with the cleric. We don't have a divine damage dealer, and I'd like to see that. Alright, so my next idea isn't actually a spellcasting class, but the Shifter was a super interesting class from Pathfinder 1e that was a wild shape specialist that could actually customize their wild shapes, but it fell a bit flat mechanically, so not all that many people actually used it, and it also came out in the final years of Pathfinder 1e, so still a lot of people didn't play it because it was only out for a couple of years before Pathfinder 2e came around. There is a ton of room for improvement for the entire concept in Pathfinder 2e. Now, it's important to actually figure out, again, what its place would actually be in Pathfinder 2e, because there are already ways to shapeshift. Wild Order Druids are the shapeshift specialists now, and I think that they should stay that way. They can basically turn into anything and are very just generalists. They are universal, they just shapeshift into a bunch of different things. Beastkin characters and Animal Instinct barbarians can do some minor shapeshifting, but they get some animal qualities, and we can go a lot further than that. You don't just want to draw or to create the mouth of a wolf and bite someone. You want to go full wolf, right? Rather than just turning into a variety of different animals or slightly changing into an animal, shifters should focus on turning it into one specific animal that they can customize to hell and back. Mechanically, if I were to design the shifter, I would take personal inspiration from the Thaumaturge, despite the fact that I don't have access to the full Thaumaturge rules. At level 1, you could pick one aspect of an animal, so like aspect of the cat, aspect of the bear, aspect of the snake, from a long list. And then as a single action, you can completely turn into an animal of that type. So you turn into a tiger. And you get a bunch of different abilities based on which aspect you chose. The tiger would probably have, I don't know, bonuses to stealth and a claw strike that does a lot of damage. Not all that complicated, but as you level up, you get access to more aspects. So like level 7, you could say, oh, well, I also want aspect of the frog on my character. So whenever I shapeshift, you get both benefits. So you get the tiger form, but you also get a tongue attack that has reach. And you can also choose one aspect to get greater abilities of. So for aspect of the cat, it would most likely be some kind of pounce ability, and you also get the weird other aspects from other animals. So basically, you're making your own chimera, and you can turn into them at any point. Now, considering that there are going to be downsides for this form, because you're an animal, you probably can't talk, and there's most likely going to be other issues like, oh, you can't use weapons, oh, you're probably going to be restricted in what magical items you can use. They can make sure that these aspect bonuses are really, really good because, yeah, imagine if you couldn't talk and rage, and that's probably what this class would be. It's a really fun concept of mix and matching different animal parts to make your animal of choice. I think that has a lot of room for interesting ideas, and I just want to see a class that shapeshifts into one specific form and then back and forth until you don't know what is the actual true form anymore. Finally, I would love to see the Kineticist. It was a very weird class in Pathfinder 1e that was an unusual mix of a martial and a spellcaster, as you manipulated elemental energy to beat people to death and had a bunch of other weird spell-like abilities. It was incredibly fun, despite how many paragraphs of rules you had to read that referenced each other and a cyclical nature to actually be able to make sense of it. It was a very, very fun class with a lot of cool ideas in it, and I think that it can really be a ton of fun in Pathfinder 2e. There's already the Elementalist archetype, but I feel like there is a room for a little bit more specialization. In particular, I believe that the Kineticist should be a primal bounded spellcaster that focuses around using elemental magic that they empower with their vital essence. I'm not sure if they should be constitution-based spellcasters, because they were basically a constitution-based class in Pathfinder 1e, as that would be very, very strong, but I do find the idea of a spellcaster based on constitution really interesting, because, yeah, it's like they don't know what they're doing, they just know that they are literally drawing strength from their own body to use their spells. Regardless, outside of their spells or their spellcasting ability modifier, I think that the main mechanic that the Kineticist should be using is the ability to drain themselves to power their own abilities. And I do literally mean drain themselves here. By spending an action, they should give themselves the drained 1 condition, and this would give them a boost to damage. And if they spend this action again on further turns, they increase the drain condition further, and let's say at drain 2 they get a +1 status bonus on attack rolls, and at drain 3 it's a larger damage bonus, and at drain 4, you know, +2 status bonus on attack rolls. But the important thing here is that this bonus would be to both attack rolls for weapons and spells, but I also believe that this bonus should apply to save DCs for their spells. But because Kineticists are a very elementally focused class, it is just 2 spells of a particular trait. So if you're, I don't know, drain 4, which is really rough by the way, then your Fireball has a 2 higher save DC. Paizo has really tried to avoid increasing or giving spellcasters a way to just get a flat bonus or an item bonus on their attack rolls or spell save DCs. But I feel like this is a strong enough negative to actually be able to justify that. Now, as someone who has played a character who has been drained 4 for multiple encounters, I can tell you that that shit sucks. So I believe that a Kineticist should be able to lose the drain condition that they get from this ability 10 minutes per drain. So if they're drained 4, it takes them 40 minutes to cool back down to drained 0. It would still take a long time to do, but I just think it'd be a lot of fun, and I like class mechanics that are very much, you get something really cool, but you're also shooting yourself in the foot. I just like that as a game mechanic, because I love risk and reward. I always take the risk. As a quick aside here, I think that this mechanic of draining yourself to power up your spells or attacks should also be accessible in an archetype that is separate from all the elemental shit. It's a pretty common trope at this point in fantasy for people to power themselves up at the cost of their own health. So allowing it to be accessible to everyone regardless of the connection to elemental energies, I think is good. Now, do you actually want to give every wizard the ability to drain themselves to, I don't know, improve the save DC of their, I don't know, charm spell? Well, that would be very strong. So, just make it so they have to deal with the drained condition normally, because drained is a nightmare to get rid of. It just takes days and days to get rid of, so saying, oh yeah, you can buff your spells, but you're going to be drained for a very long time is, I think, a fair trade-off. So yeah, I think it'd be fun. What this ultimately comes down to in this video is that I have no goddamn clue what's going to be coming out at Gen Con, but I like to speculate. I'm not a game designer, and I'm basically just picking my favorite classes from Pathfinder 1st Edition that haven't made it over to 2e yet, but I don't know. I don't think that my ideas are bad necessarily, and they absolutely could use adjustment, because, again, I'm not a game designer, and these are not playtested, so they're probably unbalanced as all hell, but I don't know, like speculating, and who knows, I might actually get some stuff right and feel very vindicated in retrospect. Thanks for watching. I've been thinking about making another video talking about what's coming up for the future of Pathfinder 2e for a while now, and brainstorming classes is fun despite the fact that this is quite literally baseless speculation. I have no idea what I'm talking about though when it comes to balancing these new classes, so take the exact details and numbers of my ideas with a grain of salt. What classes would you personally like to see, and what do you think of my ideas? Regardless of all of that though, until I see you next, live a wonderful life.